Welcome everyone to another Money Essentials workshop. Today we have the amazing Karen Brill here to speak with us all about LinkedIn. And we were just talking about this before we started. LinkedIn is changing a lot. There are so many new ways to advertise, the type of content is shifting. So I'm going to kick it over to her, let her just talk all about all things LinkedIn. And Karen, if you need me, feel free to ask me for support. The chat is open for questions and yeah, take it from here.
Thank you so much, Annie. I'm really excited to be here with you and your group and talking about LinkedIn. I think it's such a valuable tool that so many people are overlooking that can really help your business. So today we're going to be talking about content on LinkedIn. And so let's just talk a little bit the areas I'm going to be talking about. So we are going to talk about content pillars, what that is and what it means for you and your business, the post formats and formulas that are really working now, and then look at what's working for you as a business owner. So who I am. I'm a business coach and marketing strategist. I've been in the online world for over 15 years. I run 2 online businesses part-time and still have time for myself. And I love to travel. So I'd love to know if you guys can put in the chat, like where you're coming in from, if you have a business or what currently you're doing, that'd be helpful. So first of all, how many of you are on LinkedIn? If you can put like a 1 in the chat, if you're on LinkedIn, so I can see. Anyone who's on LinkedIn? Yes, you guys are great. So, but how many of you are actually active on LinkedIn? A lot of people have a profile. A lot of people did it years ago, maybe connected with the business. So if you're active on LinkedIn, put a 2, please. Anyone active on LinkedIn? Great, Alex. I'm glad to hear it. So do you post content? Do you, have conversations in the DMs? So it's really, are you showing up on LinkedIn at least every week, looking at that? So hopefully if you're active on LinkedIn, you are too, Mons. Okay, that's good to know. So did you know that there are over 1 billion users on LinkedIn, but less than 1% post content regularly? So what does that mean for us? That means there's a huge opportunity, right? For us to be able to be on LinkedIn and to really stand out and showcase what we know on the platform. I will tell you that I quit LinkedIn 2 times. So years ago, I came on because everyone was talking about it and how good it is for your business. So I tried posting and I just really couldn't get any traction. So I quit. And the second time I go back, okay, let's try this again. Like I should be able to make this work. And so I started posting, but I was kind of using what I posted on other platforms, Facebook and Instagram, and that just wasn't working on LinkedIn. So it wasn't until the third time where I like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. People are having real success here. And so I went all in and I took courses and I did cohorts and I had coaches to really figure out what worked. And I can tell you that there's definitely a framework and a strategy that works on LinkedIn. So I named my framework the Visibility Shift Framework. And it's really about first pillar is really optimizing that LinkedIn profile. That has to be optimized first. And then that content marketing strategy. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then making sure that you have an outreach strategy. So those are the 3 areas. And again, we're going to be talking about the content marketing strategy. So I'm sure that you are doing great work and that you want to have impact in the world. And I really want you to be able to reach the people that you meant to reach. And that's why you need to have the right strategy for content on LinkedIn. So let's talk about why most LinkedIn content kind of falls flat. So I will see a lot of people start posting for a while and then totally stop. You never hear from them again. A lot of people get super excited to start on LinkedIn. And so they're posting every day, but they do that for like 3 weeks and then they're kind of burnt out. A lot of times people post about so many different topics, you don't really know what they're there for, what their goal is, or how they can help people. And they do a lot of things, but they never really look at their analytics to see what's working and what's not. So, who is this for? Using content on LinkedIn. It's really for if you're trying to kind of be a thought leader in your space, you're trying to raise your visibility. If you're trying to attract clients or opportunities, not just getting likes, right? You're tired of posting randomly and hoping it works. That's what I did before. Your work is great, but your LinkedIn doesn't really reflect that. You're not getting the results that you really want. So the role of content on LinkedIn is to help build visibility, but also credibility, really authority in your space. And you really want to nurture that trust over time. And that's how showing up consistently can do on the platform. And again, of course, we want to attract leads and get sales and have revenue, right? So really we want to track aligned leads, not just any leads. I think a lot of other platforms, you can get a lot of leads, but maybe they're not the right leads. On LinkedIn, there is a way to get kind of the aligned leads that you really want that will really help your business. So I always say content without strategy is random acts of posting, right? So you'll see a lot of people kind of just do one-off tips and then they're not around anymore. You see new people to the platform try promoting themselves all the time, and that just doesn't work on LinkedIn. You'll see people who try different things, and so they have kind of an inconsistent voice or even brand on LinkedIn. And they talk to so many different audiences, you don't really know who they're for, and that's why they're not getting results. So there's definitely a cost to not showing up consistently on LinkedIn. You really kind of stay invisible. You're never going to gain traction. You're never going to, the algorithm is never going to show you to more and more people. And you really don't develop that authority if you're only showing up, once every quarter or something. And the cost too of missed opportunities. I have gotten so many speaking opportunities on LinkedIn just from showing up consistently. You can get press, you can get clients, you can find partnerships, collaborations. There's so many opportunities on LinkedIn. It's not just about, getting sales, but the opportunities there can be missed if you're not showing up consistently. And I know I felt like this, and I'm sure a lot of people feel like the same, that you're posting a lot, you're doing so much, but you're not getting a return on your investment, right? You're not getting a return for the time that you're putting into it. So you don't need to post every day, but I definitely recommend that you post with a plan. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today. So let's start out with content pillars. So these are 3 to 4 core themes that you want to be known for. They really shape your authority and your messaging and how you're going to be showing up on LinkedIn. And why they're important is if you talk really about everything, you're known for nothing, right? And so you will see people who have talked about a wide variety of subjects, but if you had a problem that you wanted a solution for, you wouldn't necessarily remember them and go to them for support. And really, when you start to really drill down and think about these pillars and the different content, makes creating the content so much faster. And who doesn't want that, right? We all want to make it easier for ourselves to be able to show up consistently. And then these pillars can really help you attract that right people, really find that audience that you're trying to reach. So when I talk about content pillars, this is kind of the idea that I have in mind. Like you have Roman or Greek pillars, whatever they are. So you have these main topics, so 3 to 4 main topics, and then you're going to have subtopics. If you see vertically, I have subtopics. So that's kind of the idea that I want you to have in your head when we're talking about that. So I'm going to give you some example. So let's say you're a website designer. What could be some content pillars for you? So, I was just thinking, I was just brainstorming myself. So maybe branding is one part of it, so that they could talk about all things branding. Another thing is website design, maybe in the aesthetics of website design, what goes into that. The person that I'm thinking of when I did this was creativity. She was big that everyone can be creative. We all have something creative about us. So that was a third pillar she wanted to talk about. And then she kind of talked about personal things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So when she had her pillars, then we went and drilled down into kind of subtopics. So all the things that could go under a pillar. So for instance, branding. They had logos, colors, style, tone, how you treat customers, image treatment, size. There were so many topics. She was really amazed when she really started to brainstorm all the things around branding. And then website design. So maybe it's CTAs on the website, the target audience, different platforms, the white space, colors, fonts, images, footer, header, goal of the website. There were just so many ideas that she started to come up with. Creativity. So she wanted to talk about why creativity she thinks is so important. Set low expectations for yourself, small steps, being consistent, not about talent. Everyone can be creative. Creativity is not just art. So these were all the things that she came up with. And there was even more. And the more she started to have these ideas in mind, the more she came up with, the more she ran across kind of in her everyday life. So we are going to do a little exercise. Hopefully you guys are willing to do this. I want you to think about the 3 to 4 pillars that you want to be known for. And I'm going to give you a couple tips and prompts around this, right? So one thing to think about is what are the problems that I solve? Okay. Or what are the ways I help people, right? What are the topics I want to be talking about, right? If you're a thought leader, maybe there's a specific topic area that you want to talk about, and maybe you can divide that into different pillars as well. So keeping this idea in mind for your own pillars, I'm going to give you a couple of prompts to help you, but I'm going to give you a couple minutes to kind of really think about the topics that you want to talk about and the subtopics, because this will make your life so much easier. So think about 3 questions your ideal client asks you all the time. What are they always asking you about? 3 problems you help solve, 3 outcomes you help create, and then maybe you have some stories too, whether it's working with clients or some personal stories that kind of relate to business. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. So if you have questions, I'll try to look at the chat, put them in the chat, but hopefully you can start thinking about your own content pillars now. So I'm just going to give you guys a couple minutes while you think about that, but I'm going to leave the prompt here. So if that helps people. And yeah, I should have gotten music so that we could play it while I were writing. So you have yours, yes, for money essentials, financial planning and budgeting, investing early in retirement, and creating income. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting as folks are thinking about this. I've found that my pillars have changed over time as I develop products and start working with clients because it really is responsive to what clients need. I mean, there's a million things financially I could go into. So I find myself trying to stay true to what my brand is, but also there are sometimes major brand shifts in the content.
Mhm. I agree. And, as things change too in the world, sometimes that's going to change too what we focus. I do quite a bit with email marketing. I didn't always before, but they had these new rules come into place last year. So that really shifted for me. So I was helping my clients with that. So I do think you have to kind of revisit the pillars, right? Like you can't just do them once and think you're totally done. So is there anyone there who'd like to share anything that they've come up? I know Annie shared hers. Thank you so much for that. How's everyone else doing? And I think we're a small enough group. If you want to come on camera or talk with us, yeah, I mean, feel free. If that's okay with you, Annie.
Hi.
Hi. I can't see you, but who is this?
My strategies. Can you see me now? I'm gonna really kind of help you get your arms around why. Hello?
Hello, yes. Yeah, I couldn't really hear him. Otherwise, if you have some, put them in the chat. I'd love to see kind of what you're coming up with for your content pillars. And if you have some of those pillars, think about some of those subtopics too, because I think once you start to get these into place, it will really make your life easier in creating consistent content.
Yeah, I can share.
Oh, okay.
I help universities streamline business processes.
Oh,
And
okay.
so some questions I often get are about like, how do we make a change from the way we've always done things? Or how do I convince my leadership that we need to change? Yeah, so those might be good ones. Or yeah, problems I help solve are messy processes that aren't serving anyone.
Those are really good ones. And, that sounds like they're very specific. So they would be really good for your target audience, right? They would see those things and be like, oh my gosh, that's me. I need that, right? So,
Mhm.
uh-huh. And do you currently post content on LinkedIn?
Occasionally. So I've written some like blog pieces on there, but
Okay.
they take me so much time that it takes me forever. And I'm like, oh, I need to write another one. I don't have, hours to do it. So looking for some ideas of kind of shorter things I could be doing to share thought leadership.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about posts in just a minute, but was that helpful to kind of think through that? Did you already know those pillars, or was this something to help focus for you?
Yeah, definitely help focus a little bit. So I'll think more about these.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like once you start thinking about it, you'll start to get more and more ideas as you go. You'll see more and more. So, well, thank you so much for sharing, Alex. I appreciate that. And I know a couple of people put things in the chat. So Moses said he's currently in a meeting. Okay, lack focus, broad value proposition, but as construction insurance claims. Okay. Natalia, for career consultants, poor interview skills, anxiety. Oh, that's good. Mock interviews, not knowing how to network effectively, how to find hidden jobs. Wow. I'm glad that helps. And again, remember, we're kind of having broad topics like I talked about for the kind of the main pillars, right? So maybe, yeah, one is kind of interview skills, maybe Natalia, you're thinking about, and that could have the anxiety, the mock interviews, all that. Maybe networking is another pillar. So those are some really good ones. You guys are doing a great job. And then let's see, there's another one. Oh, you're in the UK? That's fine if you're not fit. I understand it's the evening there, but I appreciate you participating because I want you guys to get, this is for you, right? I want you to get the most out of it that you can. So thank you so much, Natalia and Alex, for sharing. So now that we kind of have an idea around our content pillars, a lot of people are asking about AI now and what my thoughts are on AI. So do I think you can use AI? Yes, but there's definitely some qualifiers that I have. So I would say that you can only use AI to help you write posts. And I even say I don't like that to write posts for you, but if you were going to, you have to provide a lot of context for AI to give you a good result, right? So you're going to have to talk all about your audience, tell them all about your business. Otherwise, it's just going to give very generic kind of content for you. So only if you provide it and you've trained it really in your voice, in your business, all of that. And, I definitely think the best way that I've seen to use AI is you kind of write the post, you use a story or, you create the content. And then you can maybe ask AI to polish it or something, or maybe give you some ideas for the first line, the hook that you usually have, or maybe some calls to action. So, to help you kind of edit it. But again, if you're trying to stand out on the platform, you really need to use your own voice. So while I think, AI can be really effective and useful tool, I wouldn't want it to replace you, the individual, actually writing the content. So I hope that makes sense. I know a lot of people like AI, and I use it for a lot of things, especially with like data and analysis, and I'm sure Annie uses it a lot too. But I don't want it to be the creative force behind the content on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy on LinkedIn to spot content that is created by AI. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to be your own unique individual, bring the ideas. Like I said, you can have AI help you, and even AI can help maybe brainstorm topics. So, we kind of talked about these pillars today. You could ask AI, put the whole context around your business, but you could ask it to help you kind of brainstorm either the pillars or those subtopics that go underneath it so that you have all those ideas already in place. So that can help kind of spark ideas for you when you want to start writing content. So I hope that helps with that. Next, I want to talk kind of about different post formats. And I think this is a little bit what Alex was maybe talking about, that it is hard to know sometimes, especially when you start writing, what to post on LinkedIn, especially if you're going to be doing it consistently. They do have the longer form articles, and I do see people do that. But again, that doesn't really help you with visibility on LinkedIn. If people come to your profile and look at that, that's fine, but it doesn't really put you kind of on the radar in terms of the algorithm more consistently. So one of the formats that is working really well right now is telling stories. And, I'm not talking kind of about fairy tale stories or something like that, but I find that kind of using incidents or things that happen to you on a daily basis can be really useful on LinkedIn. Again, it's the idea of not a me post, but a we post. And what I mean by that is it's something that everyone can relate to. So you'll see a lot of posts about, something that happened to somebody at a coffee shop, right? And maybe how that relates to their business or their target audience or something like that. Or, a funny thing happened on a webinar. Like I had a situation where my son's chinchilla escaped and he was bouncing around during my webinar. So, I mean, just funny things. A lot of people have done webinars, they've done live presentations. And so a lot of people can relate to stories like that. So I think we need to be better at curating our own life and curating our own stories. And it's those everyday events that happen to you that actually perform the best in terms of content. And I think it's because they're real, they're authentic, people can relate to them. So I would definitely encourage you, whether it's on your phone, open that notes app and have a dedicated note just to like LinkedIn content ideas or story ideas, whatever you want to call that. And when you're walking or doing something during the day, like a lot of times what I'll do is I have a Google Doc for this and I just talk into it, like my idea that comes up, or somebody said something and it sparked an idea so that I talk into my phone to record that idea. We have so many things that happen to us and great ideas, and they're so fleeting, aren't they? Like I forget really good ideas all the time. So you really need to figure out like that capture system for yourself. For me, that works with my phone and a Google Doc open and just talking it in. But figure out what works for you. Everyone's a little different. So find what works for you, but really start capturing the stories of your life, those little stories of your life. If you're trying to be a thought leader, obviously having your insights or your opinion really go a long way in helping you stand out. And again, especially if yours is a little different from other people that are on the platform or nuanced in some way, right? Or your opinion is different than the majority of the people, or maybe you have some of the same things, but maybe you expand on a part that you think is a little different, right? Those work really well on LinkedIn as well. Now, how to or tips, I mean, those still work well. I would just suggest that you don't want to do them all the time. And this is the reason that I think is that LinkedIn is a networking platform and people are trying to connect with other people, right? So if you're just giving like how-to tips, it's kind of one way, right? Like you're just telling people how to do something. Whereas we want to have a conversation. We want to go back and forth with people. So I'm not saying not to do how-tos or tips. I mean, I do them as well. Just don't do that every day, not for every post that you're going to put up. I find that data, so any time of numbers, I think works really well. And I believe it's because there's a kind of thing with our brains that amongst the sea of letters, numbers really stand out. So if you have in your industry or something, a really amazing statistic, right? Percentage or something like that, those can do really well because especially if you put them in that hook in the first couple lines of your post, people are really drawn to those numbers. So definitely make sure you're incorporating some of those if you can. Myth busting. I think this is really fun. So I'm sure in every, person, the work that you're doing, there are myths that your probably ideal client or your audience has, right? Um, a lot of people think that that you don't need to post consistently on LinkedIn. And so, I can bust that myth that I really think you need to. You have to be consistent in some way, right? And so I talk about that a lot. And I'm sure, maybe Alex, there's things that you could talk about that, a lot of people think is true, but that that's not true. So you can really bust those myths and help you stand out and be seen kind of as credible and an authority in your area. And then, of course, I think it's important to have engagement posts. And I have some examples I'm going to show you in just a minute. But really, we want conversations to get started in our, whatever industry that is, right? So some people will use polls. Some people will just ask the question and ask people to comment. But again, if you're really looking for people and starting a conversation, that's how you can maybe transfer that conversation to the direct messages, right? And you can start to have conversations and potentially, someone will become a client for you. So it's all about, again, engaging people, not just talking one way, right? But really engaging people, getting people to connect with your content and have it resonate with them so that they're willing to take action or take the next step with you. So I want to talk kind of about a main kind of framework, a proven framework. I'm not big on templates because then I think everyone kind of sounds the same. And I want to give you some guidance in terms of a framework, but that you can kind of take it for yourself. And so what you'll see a lot on LinkedIn is to have a hook. And what that means is it's really curiosity kind of inducing, right? You're getting people to say, what? Like, I didn't know that, or something that makes them stop. Remember, people are scrolling on their phones, right? 70% of people use their LinkedIn on their phones. So we got to get people to stop the scroll. And I think having something really unusual, interesting, kind of makes people want to stop and read more. And remember, so in LinkedIn posts, there's the first couple lines show, and then you have to click see more to read the entire post. That's our main goal. Our first goal is to get people to click on that see more so that they'll read our entire post, right? So we really need something that stops the scroll and gets people to click the see more. The second component is really, whether it's a story or maybe it's a setup to you talking about some how-to tips, that's fine, or some context that they need, right? So once you have the hook, they click see more, you can start maybe the story or something. And then you want to share an insight or lesson, right? What's something that you learned from this event or this thing that you did, or maybe your client learned this lesson? Because again, you're trying to show people that there are problems that you can solve, and this is what you can learn, and this is what they would want as well. And then at the end, you want some time of call to action, right? So a lot of times on LinkedIn, the call to action will be to comment. I typically don't recommend putting links in the posts themselves on LinkedIn. While LinkedIn doesn't say this, a lot of the people who study the algorithms say your post will get less reach if you put a link in the actual post. So I don't recommend that. So that's why you'll see a lot of people, just ask a question so people will comment below. You can put a link in the first comment. So you'd have to go in and manually do that, but you can do that. I just don't recommend putting it in the post itself. But again, we want to start those conversations because the more people that start to comment on your posts, then the more it will be shown. And especially if you can get people to comment within the first 30 minutes, that's the ideal time that the algorithm's really looking to see, is this post popular? Is this a topic that's popular? Are people going to start commenting? And then it'll start to kind of show it to more and more people. So we have the hook, kind of the setup, the insider lesson, and then the call to action. So that kind of framework works really well. Now you can obviously have visuals as well. So maybe it's a screenshot or template breakdown, whatever that is, you can have that as well. But I'm really just talking about kind of the post content itself. So let me just give you, I kind of made an idea to give you an idea. So maybe the hook was something like, I used to post every day and still got crickets, right? And then maybe I'd have another line so they'll click see more. Then I have the story. So here's what changed, or here's what I changed, right? The insight could be strategic content outperforms volume. And then like the takeaway could be planning is more important than posting more, right? So that's just a little kind of thing that I thought of, a mock-up for you of kind of what each element kind of looks like. And again, once you start to do this, it will get easier and easier. But again, the hook is so important because if you don't have a good hook, they're not going to click that see more. And that's potentially where AI can help you. You can say, okay, I have this post, and maybe you share the post with them and say, okay, can you give me like 3 different hooks and see which one you like best, right? So that could be a place that AI could help you. But again, you really want the story, the insights, the lessons to come from you. Okay, and then let's just talk a little about the hook format. So on LinkedIn, the first 3 lines show before the see more button. So typically, I think the best way that it works is the first line you can have text, right? The second line would be blank, and then you'd have a third line with text again. So that, again, it's easy to read because there's some spacing there, right? It's easy to read. And again, we want it to be really curiosity inducing, so they click see more. So I'm going to give you an example. So I did this from my phone. So really the first line was 1 line, but struggling to find balance between life and work. Here's the secret. And she puts the emoji down, right? So it's kind of curiosity inducing, right? So if you really are struggling with your work-life balance, you probably would want to click on that, right? So that's what I mean by having a hook. So pretend this is 1 line. The first line, the second line is blank. And then you have the third line so that they click see more. Okay, is that clear? I hope that's clear for everybody. And then I wanted to show you a couple other posts, again, that kind of have the same idea. Want better insights? Increase the thoughts you put out, right? So again, if you're in the area that he's in, that might get you to click that see more. Here's another one. Okay, I'll be the one to say it. What is the deal with Zoom's video quality lately? And again, this is a topic that so many people can talk about. It's kind of really real. It's something that obviously happened to him, that he had an issue with it. So he's just trying to kind of, this is an engagement type post, right? He's wanting people to comment. He got 62 comments, right? That was really good. So there's topics like that that a lot of people can relate to, and that can really help with your visibility. And another one, true or false? The most important criteria when interviewing an SDR is, did I enjoy the conversation? So he's kind of a thought leader in this area. So he's, again, trying to start people talking about something. And again, he got 43 comments. So some things for you to think about when you're starting to create these posts. So you want to post like a human is what I say. We don't want to be like AI because like I said, AI is very easy to detect, I'll say. So first of all, you want short paragraphs. You don't want lots of text. You want to use your real voice. So maybe you have a certain style that you write in. You want to lean into that, I think, because that helps you stand out from the very kind of formulaic and kind of professional, very professional language that AI would use. You want to be really careful with emojis. When you've ever seen AI create posts, they use a ton of emojis, especially rocket ship emojis for whatever reason. So they're pretty easy to spot if you do that. So I would use emojis when they make sense. If it's a bullet point and you want it to be like a check mark or something, that's great. But just don't have, all these emojis all over your post. And I think it's important. You want to have a clear next step or takeaway, right? So maybe you're asking a question. A lot of times will do a question at the end. Because again, I want to start those conversations. I want conversations in my comments, and then I can comment on them and people come in and comment. Like, we want to start those conversations there. And then a lot of times it will transfer over to the direct messages. So I don't want you to do this though, please. I don't want you to have walls of text. And especially on mobile, you will see people will just have paragraphs. And on mobile, it looks just like a black blob, like literally, like my eyes cannot even distinguish word from word. So we have to be really careful. So again, remember, white space is your friend. My typical rule is if there's 2 lines of text, you need to do a return. So no more than 2 lines of text. I want to talk a little bit about post types. I mean, LinkedIn is a little different than some of the other platforms. Obviously, Instagram is very heavily image based. I would say that LinkedIn, a lot of people do use images, but I think it's very individualized because for me, my best posts are text-based posts. I only have text. I don't have an image. I don't have anything else. Those perform the best for me. But that could be due to my audience. Everyone's audience is a little different. And that's why it's so important to really figure out what works for your audience, what resonates most. So you can have a text-based, like I talked about. You can have an image. So maybe it's an image of you, a picture that you've taken. A lot of people put a lot of pictures of themselves, so you can do that. So an infographic, I'm going to show you an example of an infographic. So that is kind of this one image that has all this information on it, right? And it's not infographic size in the traditional sense, it's the size for LinkedIn, but you will see a lot of people do this. They take, especially about, I would say, leadership issues. They create a lot of these kind of infographic type posts. So it says 10 signs you're a high performer, right? So he created this really interesting infographic. And it helps people, right away understand what you're talking about and get all the points in there. So that's what I mean by infographic. A carousel, you probably have heard of that from other platforms as well, but it's typically you have multiple images. So it could be pictures, but it also could be graphics that you've created like in Canva or something, and they have to scroll through it. And then video. So it's interesting. Carousels last year were really big and they performed really well. They've kind of fallen a little bit. You'll see less people doing carousels currently. Infographics are pretty big right now. Video is interesting. So they did introduce it last year. There was a separate video feed for a while. But now they've kind of put it into the main news feed. I will say that video can work well, and especially if it's the right kind of industry or audience and things like that. But what a lot of people find is when they create the videos, it goes to a very broad audience. It's not a narrow audience. So you'll get a lot of attention, maybe a lot of impressions and things, but it's not your audience. And I think it's so important on LinkedIn to really curate the audience that would resonate with the content that you're having. So, some people do really well on video and a lot of people don't do as much video. So you'll have to kind of see, like, I think for each individual, you're going to have to test to see what's really working with your audience, your collection of followers and connections, right? See what they really want to see and what they resonate with. So those are the different post types. So now again, we're going to have you do a little work. So I want to have you make a list of some post ideas. So again, we talked about stories from your life. Even with the pillars, you had some questions, right? That you frequently get asked by your clients or problems that they have. So I would love it for you to maybe start listing some of those ideas that could then become posts. And again, if you have some stories, like think about the last 48 hours. What are some things that happened to you? I mean, they can be super mundane. Like I was sitting in my car waiting to pick up my, child from school, and you saw this or this happened, or this is just like people waiting around to have, the right client land in their lap or something like that, right? Like I think almost every kind of everyday story can relate to something in your business, or something with your audience, right? So I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to think about some post ideas, and they can be from some of those subtopics from your content pillars. They could be stories from your life. They could be results too, if you have results from your clients. Just think of everything. Like I want you to create a digital asset library where you collect all your ideas, all your images, all your videos, what it is in one place. Because only when you have everything in one place do you actually see how much you have, to, use every day. If you don't know what to post, you have all this content in one place for you, that you can repurpose. And if you have a VA, then that they can help you repurpose, right? So really start collecting and curating content that you can use, not only on LinkedIn, but in your email lists and your blogs, right? And other platforms. So really, once you start to get into this habit, you can really have something. So in terms of hosting content, I think just Google Drive, like I don't think you have to have something very fancy. I think the most important thing, it needs to be accessible to you and accessible potentially to somebody else. Like I try to think moving forward, like if you don't have a virtual assistant now, that's fine, but act as if you might have some people that might be helping you at some point. And so, just Google Drive, you can have Dropbox, whatever you're currently using, see if you can use that. Some people use like Google Sheet, like a spreadsheet, right? Where they keep all the, so whatever you're currently using, I don't want you to get something new. I don't want you to pay for something. A lot of people, think this new tool will solve all my problems when really it's just you taking the time to get it organized, right? So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes, and I'd love to see some of your post ideas if you're willing to share in just a minute. Yes, so you can schedule posts on LinkedIn and the LinkedIn app itself. So I definitely do that myself. Mhm. So let me know if you have any questions, but hopefully you're getting some ideas. Yeah, messy processes that I've encountered in my daily life. That's exactly it. Like I do one, I have a little elliptical under my desk. I've talked about that before. I mean, and connected it to something else, right? So Alex, that's great. Client stories impactful, but difficult to be specific enough. So for sure, you don't need to, you can kind of talk in generalities, right? You don't have to use their real name. But at some point it's important to talk about some of the results you get and can potentially then get for other people. But yes, you can totally kind of anonymize them so that it's not about a specific client or maybe even situation. You might have to change a little bit, but that's true. But I love the messy processes. I think that would be really, and it sounds like that would be really great for your audience. So for you, Natalia, post around clarity and direction. So I assume that's with like applying for jobs and things, and CV tips. Yep. Yep. Those are really good ones. So I hope that you really start to think, kind of every day. Like a lot of times during the day, I'll capture things, but also at the end of my day, I'll sit down and think about, okay, what happened to me today? Was there anything funny? Or did my son say something? Or, you really start to collect those. And once you start to kind of get in the habit, it gets easier and easier. And it kind of becomes second habit to you, right? When you start thinking as a storyteller, I think it kind of changes the way you view things in your life. And I think, the better writers become, the better we are able to connect with other people, right? In terms of our audiences. So hopefully you'll start thinking about this and capturing everything and organizing everything for you. So if there's any other ones, otherwise we'll kind of move on. I want to make sure we have time for everything. So, a lot of people ask me, okay, Karen, so now I have my content pillars and I have some ideas for posts. Like, how do I organize this all? And so, what I think helps is when you have, like, for me, things are visual. And so that's why it's helpful for me to see those content pillars for me. And I kind of just list out all the different formats. So text-based, image, infographic, carousel, video. I kind of have that listed there. So that I see kind of the different types. And then I start to take those subtopics and create those kind of posts. So whether it's a story or a how-to or engagement post. So I start to kind of do that so that you can kind of create a weekly plan. Now, some people like to post like every Monday, they post about website design, whatever that is, right? I don't do that, right? But I do think about, kind of usually the week before, kind of what are the content things that I'm seeing with my clients? Like a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they have questions that come up that I can really easily write a post about, right? So I try to plan my content for the next week. You don't have to post every day, as I said. I think if you really want to make progress on LinkedIn, that you should at least post twice a week. Less than that, I'm not sure that the algorithm will see you. And we have to remember, what is the algorithm doing? It's trying to find relevant content for different audiences. And so if it knows, it can say, oh, Annie, I can rely on her. She shows up all the time, 3 times a week with, topics like budgeting and finance. I know I can count on her and show her content to this audience. But let's say you say, okay, Karen, I'm super excited. I'm going to post 5 days a week. And then you stop after 3 weeks. You're telling the algorithm that it can't rely on you. It can't depend on you to produce content for these audiences. And so it definitely takes time to kind of, we'll say, build the relationship with the algorithm, which we don't understand because they won't tell us. But, you start to see kind of more progress over time. So if you can commit to 2 days a week for 52 weeks, you're great. If you can only do 1 a week, start there. I think it's usually okay to increase the number of times you post a week, then decrease. Okay. So, if you say, Karen, I could only do once a week, I would say, start there. As you start to create content and you get more content and you have that digital asset library with your content, it's easier to repurpose. And I think you'll find that once you get going, you'll be able to do more content. So I think it's really helpful to think about, how do you plan this out for yourself? Whether you use a spreadsheet. I've seen some people use like a PowerPoint slide or a Google slide, and they kind of map it out for themselves. So whatever kind of works for your brain I would recommend that you kind of create that and start to use it. Just say, okay, I'm going to use this every week on every Friday or whatever day. Every Friday, I'm going to go in and think about my content for next week, right? So you're always a little ahead. I know there are some people who create the content the same day and post. That's really stressful for me. If you can do that, more power to you. But I need to have a little time. Like I can't force ideas for myself, right? And so for me, it's easier to kind of create all this content and then schedule it out. So does anyone have any questions about that? Is that pretty clear? So hopefully you have your content pillars maybe started, you're starting to get some subtopics, you're starting to get some ideas for posts. So hopefully you're sticking with me, you're okay. So I will tell you one thing when I work with people on LinkedIn, one thing they don't do is actually look at their analytics. They don't review their data. And I'm sure Annie's horrified because she is all about numbers, right? Is there something we shouldn't do? So in terms of posting, like I said, I think if you can do 2 times a week, that's kind of the minimum. I wouldn't do controversial topics, I guess. I mean, controversial for industry, that's fine, but kind of worldwide political kinds of things like that, I wouldn't do that. LinkedIn is definitely more professional kind of platform, formal platform than other, Instagram or other things. So I definitely would stay more kind of professional. And if you're a business owner, that's probably what you want to do anyway. So I think that's what I would answer for that, Natalia. Thank you. So reviewing your data, you got to look at your analytics. So these are the things I would want you to start looking at. So what posts are getting the most views, reactions, and comments? Okay. And LinkedIn Analytics shows you each of those things. I also want you to think about what type of content is driving DMs or replies. So originally I talked about, we have to have an optimized LinkedIn profile. We have this content marketing strategy, which we're talking about today. We also have an outreach strategy, right? Connecting with new people in your industry, having conversations and direct messages with them. Because typically on LinkedIn, you get the most kind of sales through the direct messages and the DMs. And so we want to start using our content to raise our visibility, get in front of the right audience, start having conversations in the comments, and take those to the direct messages. That's typically kind of the flow of getting clients on LinkedIn. But, if you don't review your data, you're not going to know what's happening. So, typically the views or impressions is what visibility. So you're getting more impressions. That means, the algorithm is showing your content to more people. Comments means engagement, right? So it means that people are liking, or maybe not liking, but at least commenting on your post, so that you can start conversations there. So saves, you can save and share content. And that really speaks to value. A lot of times people will save like carousels or those infographics I showed you because there's so much information on it, but they want to keep it for a reason, right? And those are harder to get, I will say. On LinkedIn, it's not, I know on other platforms that's pretty common. It's less common, I would say, on LinkedIn, but it is very valuable, and the algorithm views that as very valuable as well. And then DMs or conversions, that's where the action takes place, and that's kind of what we want. Now, I want you to optimize what you have and repeat, right? So don't reinvent the wheel. I really want you to repurpose content, but it's so important for you to look at the data so you can see what is resonating the most, what's getting the most engagement and comments, so that you know, okay, they really like this topic. I'm going to do more on that topic, and these other topics didn't do as well, so maybe I will do less of those, right? You have to make data-informed decisions about the kind of comments or the content you're going to produce. And again, adjust what your audience is really responding to, because if you're trying to connect with them, we want to give them more of what they want, right? That's not to say that you can't talk about anything else, but you really start to see patterns when you start to look at your content, especially over, at least 60 to 90 days. You start to see the kind of content that really does well. And so you'll definitely have ideas then about how you can maybe hone that content strategy. I'll talk about DMs in just a minute, if that's okay. So content repurposing, like if you have a LinkedIn carousel, remember I told you that's the one with like 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever slides, kind of images that you can do. If you start with that, you can repurpose that into a text post with the same ideas, but it's just all text maybe. You could do an email from it, right? You could do a short video about it. So I want you to, anytime you create one piece of content, I want you to think while you're creating, right after you finished it, what are 3 ways that I could repurpose this right now? Because you will save yourself so much time. You're already in that mode. You already have that idea. You've really developed it. Now you can kind of do things all around it. So I hope you will start doing that, because what people do is they'll create a post and then like 3 months later, like, oh, I should repurpose that. And they're like, what was I thinking? What was I doing then? Right? It's really easier when you're creating it to actually try repurposing it at that moment. You want your best post to work for you, and you want to save yourself time, and you don't want to be on kind of the content hamster wheel of always creating, right? So by having that digital asset library where you keep everything, that makes it so much easier for you to put out content consistently. So the action plan I want to have is choose those 3 to 4 pillars, still fill out those subtopics. There are so many subtopics. You should have like 25 to 50 subtopics under each one, right? Pick the 2 to 3 formats to use consistently. So if you think text is easy for you, image is easy for you, maybe you like video, start testing those, put those out for at least 30 days and see which ones are getting the best engagement. But you have to track what works. So look at those numbers, look at the analytics, look at the data, and then commit to posting at least 2 times per week with intention. Now, like I said, if you don't think you can do that right from the beginning, I get it. But once you start going and once you start creating content, I think it will become easier and easier. So let me answer this question. Who asked this? Alex. Okay. If you want to come on, we can talk too. Can I ask a question about it? I'm frustrated with an ability to message people when I'm not connected with. Example, great comment. I asked to connect so we can talk, then crickets. Yeah, so I don't always have premium. Sometimes what I'll do is if I have like a launch or something coming up, I will upgrade to premium for a month and I'll do my things and then I'll downgrade again. So you actually don't. But I think what I find is when I'm not only a good poster, but I'm a good commenter as well. So like I said, if you can, respond to comments in your posts, I comment on other people's posts too, especially if it's someone new. If you comment, if you show up in their comments a couple of times, they're more likely to request a connection with you. So then you can start that conversation, right? So we have to be a little strategic when you're not able to have kind of the connection ability like you would in a premium. So I think just showing up more often can be really helpful. Also posting, more and more people start to come to you then, and especially if they're in your target audience, they're then more likely to do that. So that's one of the ways I think you can get around that. So I hope that helps. I know it can be frustrating. I totally get that. Like I said, though, I find when I'm active on the platform, people are more likely to reach out to me. So I hope that gives you some hope about that.
Yeah, thank you. I know I was really frustrated. I used to do the like custom connection request and like say like, oh, here's where we talked, but
Mhm.
they started limiting that too.
Yes, and I will say it's interesting. So I've done tests for myself, and this again just for me, but it's something that you might want to think about testing. When you send the connection request, it can be just sent directly or with a note, right? I've done both, and actually a lot of times I get a higher connection rate when I have no note, which is kind of counterintuitive. And I don't know if it's because people don't have time to read. They're afraid they're getting pitched to, right? There's a lot, they call it pitch slapping on LinkedIn, where they pitch you like the first message that they send you. And so I don't know if that's the reason or not. But I definitely think that you should try both and see if what works. Because I think if you just send a connection request, they'll come over to your profile, check you out, and decide if you're for them or not. If there's a specific region, like you both went to the same university, then I would probably put that. But definitely test it out. I think there's some more questions. That's what I'm thinking, Annie, kind of without the note. Um, it maybe doesn't seem like you're trying to sell to them right away. I think, you've probably all experienced this, like someone comes on really strong, and we definitely don't want that. You got to play the cool game, right? And just kind of have, yeah, exactly, mystery, like have short little conversations. Don't do it too eagerly. Like have some space in between the messages to kind of draw it out so you don't seem like that person who only is thinking about a sale, right? We really want to make sure we're switching it. This is a connection request, right? We're trying to network. You don't go to a network meeting and like pitch yourself right when you meet them, right? So again, you have to think about the context about LinkedIn and direct messages. So are there any other questions? I'd be happy to answer it if you want to come on, or just type in the chat. I'm happy to do that. I know there's a little delay. Hi, Alex.
Hi, I can ask another question. That'd be great. So I have both a kind of day job and then a side hustle, and mostly I'm using LinkedIn for the side hustle.
Okay.
But like my LinkedIn is all of my professional experience. I'm connected with colleagues at both in both worlds. And so I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you've ever encountered that, or like that might be contributing to my inconsistency in like content. Do I pick one and just go all that direction? But yeah, kind of wondering how to balance that.
Yeah, it is a little tricky. And the reason, so what I typically say is if there are people that you've been connected to with a long time or something, and they're kind of on the work side and not on your side hustle side, a lot of times what I'll secretly do is unconnect but follow, because that changes the algorithm who your content will be showing up for. So, they usually are not notified of that. So that's why you can kind of do it quietly, a quiet quit or something. Um, but you want to train your algorithm for the people you want, right? And so if it's the side hustle people, which might be different from the work professional people, you're definitely, want to kind of let go of some of those people. Now, maybe not everyone, I'm not saying that, but it also helps if you then start following people that could be potentially for your side hustle. Like again, you're giving clues to LinkedIn's algorithm that these are actually the people I want to be talking to. This is the content that seems to resonate with them, right? We got to show them who we want to see our content and who we really want to have connection or conversations and connections with. So the more you can do that, I think the better. Does that make sense? Okay, is that helpful? I hope that helped. Yeah, there's a lot of people who have kind of two reasons to be on LinkedIn, right? And it is a little tricky. Like some people's workplaces don't allow them, so that is definitely trickier. Um, but if you can, like Alex, I hope that you're able to kind of not have to use it for work. That way you can really talk. And, some of the topics might be relevant to both, right? So it's not like it's a complete division between the things. But at least you can start to show LinkedIn, no, I want these people, these maybe aren't connected with your work. They're just kind of other people and other places, that those are the people you want to see their content. So hopefully that was helpful. Any other questions? Some really good questions. I appreciate that. So I have just one thing for you. If you have questions about the content things that we did today, or you want your LinkedIn profile reviewed, I have a free review. So, you can choose your profile or your content. Just go to linkwithkaren.com and I can definitely help you with that. But thank you so much for showing up. And thank you so much, Annie, for having me. I enjoy talking about LinkedIn content. I could talk about it for a long time, but hopefully you have a couple actionable things you can take with you. Work on those content pillars, create that digital asset library where you store everything in one place, get out that Google, what do I say, doc or something, and start recording things for yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Karen. And yeah, we'll pull up her contact information here. I'm just gonna drop a couple of things. So if you enjoyed the workshop today, we have so many amazing upcoming events, actually. Yes, and this is being recorded, so I'll be sending out the recording to everyone who registered, so all of you will get a copy of the recording. I'm also gonna put Karen's information in the email to all of you, so you'll have that, plus her website and her contact info. And Karen's coming back to do additional workshops, so look for her name on that link right there, Money Essentials /events. There's a couple other ones coming up, so be sure to come back for the other ones, get registered. If you have any other questions, reach out to Karen or I directly, but thanks everyone for coming. Thanks, Karen, for your time. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Annie. I had a good time. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Take care. Bye, everyone.